Mononoke, and no, I don't mean of the princess variety, is a 2007 horror mystery anime about the dangerous spirits that haunt troubled individuals, and the wandering elusive man known only as the medicine seller who dispatches them. It's a lot like Mushishi if you replaced the wonder and optimism with abortions. Lots and lots of abortions. It's hard to deny the art and class that bleed from this collection of grim tales, but is Mononoke's style over substance, or is it a true piece of realized art, both inside and out? But let me just say, you don't need a magical talisman to find out. Mononoke is a collection of 5 2 to 3 episode stories about the vengeful spirits known as Mononoke and the troubled and corrupted humans that they latch onto. The mysterious no-named medicine seller always appears in the right place at the right time, with his pack of goods ranging from talismans to keep the spirits at bay, scales to determine their location, and last but not least, his exorcism blade, which can only be drawn from its hilt when the Mononoke's truth, regret, and form are known. Basically, which Mononoke is it, who it's drawn to, and why. Each story plays out essentially like a murder mystery or a whodunit, piecing together which characters are honest or dishonest and what are the true intentions or underlying elements, rather than just diving right into the spiritual and the action. It's the many strong side character interactions that help give a far more sense of urgency and weight to a series that would otherwise fail if it were just the medicine seller and the Mononoke in isolation. Seeing those who are affected by or brought forth these vengeful spirits and the true horror that comes from their visceral reactions are far more profoundly horrifying and lingering, rather than something like a dark hallway or a knife-wielding maniac in modern horror. Mononoke instead feels more like a nightmare and dives into surrealism and more obtuse, unsettling scenes that at times can feel disjointed or nonsensical. But hey, that's just like any good nightmare. Things that tend to scare us the most and stay with us the longest aren't just simple jump scares, but philosophies and truths twisted and warped into something far more personal and frightening. So let's talk about the animation and art style for the series, because it's a bit hard to ignore it. It demands attention and boasts creativity and clever use of its 17th century Japanese painting motif. It's expertly and carefully used up until the closing monologue of the last episode. It's art. And the one thing I was afraid of going in was whether or not it would be actually entertaining and engaging art. Like, don't get me wrong, something like Vincent van Gogh's creations are art and are beautiful to look at, but I don't want a whole fucking anime based on woman with a spade seen from behind. When you apply art to animation and therefore a piece of entertainment, there needs to be something else there that keeps the intrigue and attention on the art style, while at the same time makes what you're depicting with said style actually enjoyable to watch. But luckily, Mononoke's beauty is not only skin deep, and behind its canvas-like material is a smart series, as witty, engaging, and beautiful as its exterior. This is a decade-old series that doesn't show its age. From the far softer line work that mimic the strokes of a brush, the use of far lighter and varied pastels, to the simplicity of the portrayal of background characters, it's an anime that transcends the typical norms and shortcomings of the medium, well apart from the glaring use of 2007 CG animation with the scales and a few other minor things. But that, for the most part, is a forgivable downside of the period rather than shortcomings of the studio. Also, speaking of the studio, it really makes you wonder what creative, unrestricted powerhouse was behind its creation. Perhaps it was the unflinching creativity of Shaft, the consistency and excellence of Madhouse. Nope, it was those bunch of goofs in the Philippines responsible for the current adaptations of One Piece and Dragon Ball Super. You know, the same studio that receives daily complaints and hate because of their poor art and pacing created an anime with some of the best art and proper pacing ever made. It just goes to show you that studio identity isn't as clear-cut as you may think it is, and with enough creativity, talent, and lots of fucking budget, anything can be done. Mononoke's art style, however, does not lend itself to fast-paced animation or quick, sudden movements, so expect a lot of talking heads and less intricate motion for the majority of any given story, outside of its climax, of course. Knowing this, the series instead puts a lot of focus on what can't be seen but instead heard, putting the voice acting aside because, yeah, it's almost always pretty good, and instead looking at the OST and audio design, Mononoke excels at adding a sense of unease and tension to what is more often than not a rather stagnant dialogue-heavy scene. It also greatly ramps up the emotional weight and impact when the tension is met, and the far more robust and climactic scenes that wrap up any given story occur. While it's a dreadful soundtrack to listen to in the absence of the series, the smooth, light jazz OP is very much, as the kids say, a fire. The sound and Foley work are also something to commend, as it never really seems to stand out in your average anime, and it feels like the same dozen or so sound effects, whether it be for punching, walking, or what have you, are reused and recycled among countless other series. Everything in Mononoke, whether it's true or not, feels like sound work that was specifically made for it here. Have a listen. There is, however, a bit of a barrier of entry when it comes to Mononoke, unlike most anime. While its art style is universally accepted as being gorgeous, those who are coming from far more lighthearted and palpable anime may have a harder time getting into something like Mononoke, especially accompanied with its far slower pacing. In my opinion, the first part, consisting of the first 2 episodes of the series, is also the weakest story of the bunch, and one I wasn't able to get through when I attempted to watch the anime 5 years ago. It follows the medicine seller booking the last room in a bustling inn on a rainy day when a foreign pregnant woman comes stumbling in begging for shelter from an assassin hunting her down. After much deliberation, the owner decides to give her that room. No, not this room or the other room, but that room. What dark secrets does the room hold, and what is the mistress hiding? The other stories range from a merchant ship full of extravagant passengers sailing into the Japanese equivalent of the Bermuda Triangle and the hellish night that seems to never end, all the way to another story about a neglected housewife who brutally butchers her entire family while being controlled by a trickster masked spirit. But easily my favorite story is the 2-part Nue that has some extremely clever use of color, fun characters, surprisingly high stakes, and one of the most unforgettable endings that I'm sure to remember for quite some time. It tells the story of 4 men, medicine seller serving as a fill-in in a competition of incense smelling in order to win the heart of a woman, and I wouldn't dare say any more than that. Mononoke's stories, while always feeling complete, are never explicit in their resolutions. It's always up to the viewer to pick up and follow the breadcrumbs carefully laid out by the series and draw up a lot of the conclusions and themes themselves. Sure, some episodes are far more clear than others, but it's this respect for the viewer's intelligence that make for a far more engaging experience. Mononoke is easily a series that could have been chalked up to literally pretentious the anime, with any arguments or criticisms about it being deflected by, "You just didn't watch it right." And while I usually thrive on a careful balance of terrible seasonal anime, cozy slice of life, and too deep for you anime, I can assure you that Mononoke is not only an immensely capable, visually amazing collection of thought-provoking, unsettling, and sharp stories, but an entertaining ride that is for the most part one of the most consistent episodic works I've seen, apart from a bit of unevenness in an episode or two. Its accessibility within art, sophistication within storytelling, and its beauty within horror.